Today on Outside the Box Reviews, we are taking a look at the Hasbro Marvel Universe Professor X figure. Now come on, this is the essential X-Men figure for any collection. We've gotten so many Cyclops figures out there in MU. We've gotten way too many Wolverine figures. We've even gotten a handful of Magneto. But we finally get Professor X, and that has me super happy and super excited. And I'm just going to say it right now, they did not skimp out on this figure. For a Marvel Universe figure, they pulled out all the stops on Professor X here. So let's take a closer look at him. We once again get our little cardboard insert that they tell me is an accessory of a comic book cover, and this is from Professor X and the X-Men #1. This is a comic that I actually owned. I probably still own it somewhere. It's a comic that I read the hell out of when I got it. It was so cool to me to have this retelling of the original X-Men story with more modern art and a little more modern storytelling, and this comic was a big one out of my childhood. This was one of my prized comic possessions as a kid. So, as much as I don't like these stupid cardboard accessories, this kind of means something to me in a weird way. So, a little happier than normal to get this thing. And I don't have to complain about us not getting a figure stand this time around, because we get the ultimate figure stand in Professor X's hover chair. And this thing is beautifully done. It comes in package, split down the middle. You can see this big seam here in the middle. But it's a beautiful gold color with some red accents, kind of dry brushed in there. Very well done. Some cool little vents and things coming up all over it. Big kind of black ball on the bottom. Lots of great detail on this chair. Lots of cool little touches, and you can see bolt patterns on the back here, and everything on it's just really cool. I really dig it. Even the back here looking like the plush of the chair, the padding of the chair looks really well done. Phenomenal piece. This is great. It's an absolutely wonderful piece on Hasbro's part. As for Professor X himself, I'm going to put it out there that this does not feel like a Marvel Universe figure. This feels like a figure out of some other line. I can't tell if it's G.I. Joe or if it feels like a figure that's not even Hasbro, but it feels very strange to have in hand. The head sculpt is solid, generic, bald guy. He's got some kind of crazy arching eyebrows going on, and his basic bald Professor X head. I guess you wouldn't have it any other way, would you? So nothing extraordinary in head sculpt, but it looks Professor X enough. The weird part is this guy being a bald guy in a business suit, he probably would make a decent little Lex Luthor figure if you need one coming out with the new Superman movie. Got his suit on. Now this feels weird. It's a harder plastic making up this suit over top of everything else. So he's got the suit jacket and the undershirt, and then his tie is tucked in there. And it's a much harder thing than I would imagine it being. I thought it would be kind of more soft rubber like they do on, say, Jubilee's coat. But this is very hard plastic here. The bottom's a little more pliable. The arms are hard sculpted. A little white cuff around the edge. Pretty simple hands. They're well designed to go and kind of do the stereotypical little I'm thinking using my powers pose. So that works out well. In his upper back here we have a little hole that goes through both the jacket and the figure itself. I'm not sure what that's for. We could always stick that jetpack that came with the Bucky and the Captain America line. We could stick that on him, and we could have rocket-powered Professor X. That could be kind of crazy. Down here we got his slacks. He's very blue. Almost everything's that same tone of blue, which is a little disappointing. But they're basic slack pants. But here you can see he has a metal T-bar in his crotch and 2 metal screws, which really screams G.I. Joe to me. I remember my G.I. Joe figures as a kid always having that metal in there. And I wonder if it is a G.I. Joe leftover, or if they just had to make it this way for some other weird reason. It seems kind of odd, because I think most people are going to have Professor X in the chair at all times. So it's almost unnecessary. We just got simple bottoms of the pants and simple little black shoes. He's not a complex character, but I am glad that he's able to come out of the chair and isn't just permanently affixed to it, because they could have given us that. And it would have been fine, but it's much cooler to be able to have Professor X out, because there are plenty of times in the comics where he can walk, even though most people think of him as the guy in the wheelchair. Articulation, he has a ball-jointed head, just a simple normal ball joint, nothing fancy about it, but gives him enough range of motion. Arms can go out to the side, spin around, bend and swivel at the elbow, rotate at the wrist, can rotate at the waist. He might have more articulation under this hard suit, but we'd never know it. Forward, back, out to the side of the legs. No upper leg swivel, so he can only go in and out, back to the side, but once again, not really a big deal with Professor X. Bend and swivel at the knee, and swivel and bend at the ankle. Getting the Professor in the chair could be a bit of a pain. You have to kind of weasel him in there. Because his jacket's a little harder than normal, you have to kind of squish it inside the seat and just get him just right, or else he's kind of floating out of the chair, which looks a little awkward. But once you get him, he looks pretty good. The only really other thing I could see them maybe having included in this set was his little lap blanket, even just a hard plastic piece that would rest in here, kind of covering up his lap like he is in the comics most of the time. Would have been a nice touch. They did it on the Mini-Mate. But I'm guessing it probably was one of those things where we either get him in the chair permanently with the lap blanket, or we get him removable without it, and definitely dig the fact that he can come out of the chair. Overall, this figure is a high recommend from me. Once again, growing up with the X-Men, this was one of the most important characters. And if you're going to have an X-team together, this is definitely a piece that you need, because throughout most of the X-Men's history, this guy's been at the center of all of it. He started it, and he was just a major player. And by that means alone, Professor X is a completely necessary piece for any X-Men fan. And I really dig this figure. They did a really good job on him. He's a little weird just seeing how he doesn't feel like any other Marvel Universe figure, but the chair is done spectacularly. The colors on him are a little bland just because he's so blue. A little bit more color thrown in there probably would have helped it all out a little bit, but still, great figure. High recommend. Make sure you check out Outside the Box Reviews on Facebook. And until next time, this has been another Outside the Box Reviews. Stay tuned for more to come.